I never thought the first thing I'd hear after surviving a stroke would be laughter. Not relief, not prayer, but laughter. Useless now, just a body in a bed, Tyler said. His voice was low, sharp, like he knew I could hear but didn't care. I kept my eyes shut. My body was heavy, but my mind was awake, alert in a way it hadn't been in years. That kind of betrayal does something to a man, clears the fog, burns through the numbness. Should we tell the lawyer he's awake? A nurse asked. No, Tyler replied. He won't be for long. My grandson, my own blood. I helped raise him when his father walked out, paid for his braces, let him crash on my couch when he flunked college. And now he was timing my funeral. I heard the rustle of a paper bag, fast food probably. Something greasy, cheap, and eaten over my body like a buffet table. Hey Mom, Tyler said between bites, you think the deed in the safe? My daughter's voice, cold, controlled. If he didn't change the documents, it's still yours after probate. I'll call the notary tomorrow. So they had it planned, like a business deal. All those years I tried to teach them right, family first, honesty, faith. And here I was, being divided up like furniture. The heart monitor beeped steadily, almost too calm for what I was feeling. They must have thought I couldn't hear them, or worse, didn't care. Make sure he doesn't get confused and mess something up legally, my daughter said. Act like we care. He doesn't know what day it is, Tyler scoffed. He's a ghost already. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sit up, grab him by the collar, and tell him exactly what I thought of him, but I stayed still. Silent. Because now I knew, and they didn't know that I knew. I'll bring a pen tomorrow, Tyler mumbled, sipping something, just in case he's still breathing. I heard their chairs scrape against the tile as they stood. Tell the nurse we'll be back Friday, my daughter said. Think he'll last that long? I don't care if he does or not. Their steps faded down the hallway. The door clicked shut. Only the monitor remained, a steady, cruel reminder that I was still here and still theirs to harvest. I opened my eyes slowly. The ceiling tiles came into focus. They thought I was finished. But I had one thing they'd forgotten about: time. I lay there for hours, going over everything in my mind. The documents I never signed. The conversations I'd recorded by accident. The cousin I trusted, the only one who ever sent me birthday cards without asking for money. I thought about my wife, about how ashamed she'd be of them, of me for trusting them so blindly. If anyone's listening, don't make the mistake I did. Don't wait for betrayal to teach you who your family really is. The lights dimmed for the evening rounds. I turned my head toward the IV stand, where Tyler had left his soda half-finished, straw still wet from his mouth. I smiled. They thought I was a ghost. But ghosts don't plot revenge. They didn't even sign the card. It sat crooked on the mantel, too clean, too blank. Get well soon, in glittery letters untouched by human hands. Not even a love, Tyler. Not even a scribbled joke. Just mass-printed pity from someone who didn't care enough to show up. I stood there staring at it longer than I should have, the stiffness in my legs reminding me of what I'd just been through. One minor stroke, and suddenly I was a burden, an object, a property waiting to be claimed. The phone hadn't rung once since I got home. No casserole, no flowers, not even a knock on the door. Except for Jonah. Uncle, his voice had cracked through the voicemail. I just heard what happened. I'm sorry. If you need anything, groceries, help around the house, I'll drive down, no problem. 2 states away. 2 states, and he still offered to come. He didn't ask about the house. Didn't mention money, just me. I pressed the phone to my chest for a second longer than I should have, as if it could warm the part of me they'd made so cold. Tyler had asked about the deed before I was even discharged. I shuffled to the back room, my hand grazing the edge of the wall for balance. The cabinet was still there, my old metal filing drawer with the broken top handle. I hadn't opened it in months. Inside, under layers of yellowed papers, bank statements, and my wife's old recipes, I found the folder. Property 87, Flintridge Lane. I opened it with a knot in my chest. There it was, the unsigned deed transfer. I had printed it a year ago, thinking I was being generous, passing the house to Tyler, my legacy. He used to help me rake the leaves. He cried when I bought him his first bike, called me Pops like he meant it. Now I was just the old man with the keys. My fingers shook as I closed the folder. If I'd signed it last year, if the stroke had hit harder, Tyler would already be hosting barbecues in the backyard, planning renovations I never agreed to. I could hear my late wife's voice so clearly. It felt like she was in the room. "Don't reward disrespect," she used to say, "especially from family." I took the file, tucked it back into the drawer, and twisted the cheap lock shut. It wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it was something. Then I walked over to my desk. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, tore off the first crumpled page, and wrote across the top in bold black ink, "People who were there." Under it I wrote one name, Jonah. Not my daughter, not Tyler. Just Jonah. I stared at the name, the way the letters slanted slightly, and remembered how small his hand had been when he first grabbed mine at the funeral, my wife's funeral. He had cried for her. Tyler had asked who would inherit the car. I set the pen down and leaned back in the chair. Outside, a wind chime clinked gently. It was the only sound in a house too big for one, too empty for healing. I folded the list once, twice, and slid it into the same drawer as the deed. I wasn't done recovering, not yet. But I wasn't done watching either. Sometimes silence tells you more than words ever could. But that day, it was the words I wasn't meant to hear that cracked me open. The baby monitor buzzed faintly on the shelf behind me. I'd forgotten it was even there. The home nurse had moved it from the guest room when she adjusted my recliner, probably didn't realize it was still transmitting. I wasn't expecting anything, just sipping watered-down soup, eyes on the wall. Then I heard my daughter's voice, clipped, irritated. "Just keep him comfortable, 6 months, maybe less. Then we can list the property." I didn't breathe. Tyler replied, his voice far too casual. "I said we wait until he croaks. No drama, no interference. He's practically furniture now." My spoon dropped into the bowl, splashing broth on my blanket. My hand trembled not from the stroke, but from something deeper, colder. My own daughter, my own grandson, selling my death like a garage item. "Has he signed anything recently?" she asked. "Not yet," Tyler muttered, "but the will's still got my name." I checked the drawer. "You idiot," she hissed. "You are snooping around again if he catches you." "He won't," he said. "He's weak. He still thinks I bring him tea because I care." My mouth went dry. The tea, the warm smiles, the gentle hand on my shoulder. Fake. Every gesture had been a performance. Every cup of tea, a bribe for silence. "Just be sweet," my daughter said. "Make sure he stays calm, no surprises. I'll deal with Helen." I flinched at that name. My old lawyer, had they reached her too? They moved into the living room, voices fatting. The monitor fizzed with static, then cut back in with the clink of a glass. "I could redecorate the den," Tyler said. "Tear down that awful rose wallpaper." That was my wife's wallpaper. I couldn't move, couldn't even cry. My heart thudded in my chest, not from panic, but from something ancient, older than betrayal. Resolve. I reached over to the end table and opened the drawer slowly. The baby monitor receiver had a USB out, something I'd forgotten I installed back when my wife was sick. For emergencies, I'd told myself. I plugged in a dusty thumb drive. The red light blinked once, then twice. Recording. Later that evening, Tyler came into the room carrying a tray. Made your favorite, Pops, chicken with the rosemary you like. He set it down gently, arranging the utensils like some doting grandson in a movie. You sleep okay last night? He asked. I nodded, forcing a smile, like a baby. He chuckled. That's what I like to hear. You're getting stronger every day. He sat on the couch across from me, picking at a sandwich he'd made for himself, watching TV, laughing at something meaningless. I studied the shape of his face, the way his eyes narrowed slightly when he smiled. Every movement calculated, every word rehearsed. He thought he was playing me. But the monitor on the shelf blinked red, steadily capturing every lie. I took another sip of tea, the same tea he'd used to poison my trust. Then I looked at the thumb drive. It blinked back, silent, patient, honest. Grief doesn't always arrive in black. Sometimes it shows up in cardboard. Jonah stood in the doorway, clutching a dusty cigar box like it might fall apart in his hands. Mom found this in the garage, he said. Said it was junk, but I figured you'd want it. His voice was soft, uncertain, not performative like Tyler. No sweet talk, no angle. Just presence. I nodded and motioned him in. My legs weren't working right that day, so he helped me to the chair with that same quiet patience he'd had as a boy. He placed the box on the coffee table and popped the lid open. The smell hit me first, old paper and faint tobacco, like a memory too proud to fade. Inside, my wife's photos, some creased, some pristine, her handwriting on the back, Jonah's 6th birthday banana cake, a dried flower from our 25th anniversary, army letters I'd written but never mailed. And tucked near the bottom, a folded manila sheet. I unfolded it slowly. Draft Living Trust Agreement, 2008. My name, my wife's, the property listed, the trust unsigned. I stared at it stunned. Jonah didn't even ask what it was. He didn't glance at the folder. Need anything while I'm here? He asked. Just your company, I said. He smiled. Well, you've got that. He stayed an hour, helped me refill my meds, changed the batteries in the smoke detector without being asked, never mentioned money, never once looked around like he was taking inventory of what might be his someday. After he left, I sat with the cigar box in my lap. My fingers brushed the papers, the photos, the ghost of my wife's perfume on the old flower. She would have trusted Jonah. She always said, he's got your quiet. I stared at the living trust again. I'd forgotten I even wrote it, but the language was all there. Transfer of home, stipulations. The name of the successor trustee, Helen Ward, attorney at law. I picked up the landline. She answered on the second ring. Helen, I rasped. Her voice cracked like gravel. Well, I'll be damned. Haven't heard that voice in a decade. I need to talk, I said. It's about Tyler. A pause, then, I hope you haven't signed anything. No, I said, but they're circling. Meet me tomorrow. Bring what you've got. I barely slept that night. The clock ticked louder than usual. My chest felt tight, not from illness, but from knowing I had delayed too long. Morning came, I dressed slow. Every button felt like a mile. Helen's office hadn't changed. Same peeling wallpaper, same lopsided coffee table, same war medals on her bookshelf that she never talked about. She didn't ask how I was. Just looked at me for a beat and said, "You look like hell." "Feel worse," I said. "Good," she grinned. "Means you're still alive enough to fight." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the thumb drive. Laid it on her desk without a word. She stared at it, then lit a cigar without asking. The flame caught slow. "Let's burn their house of lies down," she said. "The past always comes dressed like the future, until you catch it in the act." Helen's call came just after lunch. I was sipping weak tea, trying to keep my hand from shaking. "They filed a quitclaim deed," she said flatly. "Last September, your daughter submitted it. Tyler signed as a witness." My throat closed. I hadn't signed anything. Not last year, not ever. They forged my signature, I asked, though the answer hung in the silence between us. I've seen cleaner forgeries from preschoolers, Helen said, but they filed it. County records had it flagged under review. She sent me the scanned document while we were still on the phone. I opened it on my laptop and stared. The signature looked like a child trying to mimic cursive from memory. Slanted wrong, letters too tall. I hadn't written like that since the early 90s. Do you want to press charges? Helen asked. I sat back. My fingers traced the edge of the table. The answer stirred inside me like a pot just coming to boil. Not yet, I said. Let them keep thinking I'm still the fool. Helen didn't argue. She understood the long game. I'll keep the paperwork ready. Just say the word. I will, I said, soon. After we hung up, I didn't move for a long time. I just stared at the screen, at my fake name, at the empty space where their guilt should have been. They tried to erase me before I'd even left. And they weren't even smart about it. That night, Tyler stopped by unannounced. No knock, just let himself in like he owned the place. "Pops," he called out cheerfully, "brought you some oranges." I didn't reply, just watched from the hallway as he walked straight into the kitchen, opened the wine cabinet, and poured himself a glass from the bottle I'd been saving since my anniversary. He sniffed it, nodded approvingly, and took a long sip. "Still got good taste," he muttered. I stood just behind the hallway corner, heart pounding slow and deliberate. He was too comfortable, too smug, like he believed the lie he helped build. I slipped into the back room and sat at my desk. The monitors were all lit, every room in the house captured by tiny black cameras I'd installed years ago. Most people forget old men still know how to use old tricks. I pulled up the security dashboard. Then I started deleting. Living room, gone. Kitchen, gone. Backyard, front entry, hallway, gone. I left only one camera untouched, the one in the study. The only room with a microphone. The only room where the real conversations always happened. Because I knew what was coming. Tyler wouldn't stop with wine. He'd come for the papers next, maybe the safe, maybe my laptop. He'd come smiling. And I needed him to feel safe enough to make that final mistake. Back in the kitchen, he laughed at something on his phone. "Man," he said to himself, "this is gonna be a good year." I closed the laptop, locked the drawer, and turned off the light. Let him enjoy his drink. Ghosts drink free until the lights come back on. Some memories whisper. This one shouted through time in crayon. I wasn't looking for anything, just clearing out a drawer full of tangled charger cords, old birthday cards, and my wife's mismatched socks. Grief gives you strange chores. I needed something to do with my hands. At the very bottom, folded into a faded envelope with no stamp, was a piece of lined notebook paper. I unfolded it carefully, like it might fall apart. Big, lopsided letters in red crayon. "Thank you for the books. I want to be strong like you. I love you, Uncle." No last name, no return address, just Jonah. I stared at it, my thumb tracing the curve of the J. He must have been 8, maybe 9. I'd given him a box of Hardy Boys novels that summer. He devoured them in a week and called me Uncle Joe, master detective, for months. He cried when my wife died, stood at her graveside in a suit 2 sizes too big, clinging to my arm the whole time. He didn't say a word, just cried quietly into his sleeve. Tyler, that same day, had asked where we'd parked. The ache that built in my chest wasn't sadness, it was direction. I laid the letter flat on the desk and stared at it. Jonah never asked for anything, never once hinted about the house, never poked around the safe or asked about what happens when, like Tyler did, always with a joke behind it. He just showed up. Tyler, meanwhile, had posted a photo that morning. Helen had sent me the screenshot. Him standing outside my gate, leaning against the mailbox like he already owned it. Grandpa's house gonna look so good once we redo the floors, smiling money designs. 1,000 views, dozens of comments. Congrats, bro. Can't wait to see the new kitchen. The kitchen I built with my bare hands in 1987. The tile I laid down one cracked square at a time. That kitchen wasn't even cold yet, and he was already planning how to gut it. Helen had emailed me earlier in the week. Here, the new trust draft, all language reviewed. Jonah as successor, you as current trustee, no room for loopholes. I hadn't opened it right away. Not because I doubted the idea, but because I wasn't sure if I had the heart for it. But after that post, after the crayon letter, there was no more hesitation. I printed the document, smooth and official, with my name typed in bold at the top. I read every word twice. Then I pulled out my pen, the one my wife gave me on our 30th anniversary, the one I hadn't used since she passed. And I signed. First name, middle initial, last name. Careful, clean, unmistakably mine. I watched the ink dry under the desk lamp, spreading out slow across the page like it was settling in for good. Outside, the wind picked up. My rose bushes knocked softly against the window. I placed Jonah's letter back in the drawer, on top this time. Not buried, not forgotten. Earned. Smiles lie louder than silence ever could. The balloons said happy birthday, but the air smelled like a negotiation. My daughter had arranged the whole thing, called it a small gathering, just family, just love. I was supposed to be touched. Instead, I felt embalmed. Tyler was the first to arrive, balancing a store-bought cake in one hand and his phone in the other. Triple chocolate, he said. Thought you deserved something sweet for once. He winked like we were in on a secret together. I nodded, appreciated. He didn't notice I hadn't smiled. My daughter followed, holding a thin box wrapped in paper that looked reused. Got you something practical, she said. You always said cologne makes a man feel alive. I unwrapped it slowly. Same bottle I already had in the bathroom, barely used. She never paid attention. Perfect, I said. Now I've got one for each wrist. They laughed, I didn't. They lit candles, sang too loud, made jokes about how I still had some good years left. The whole room felt off like actors performing for a director who'd already left. I looked around and realized what I was sitting inside wasn't a party. It was a funeral for their future. They just didn't know it yet. The trust was signed, the documents filed. The name on the deed now read Jonah Michelson, legally binding, irrevocable. Jonah hadn't come to the party. He'd sent a single text that morning. Trust is final, hope you're at peace. I was, but the peace wasn't soft or sentimental. It was surgical. I'd listened to every recording, every whisper, every time Tyler thought I was asleep, every phone call my daughter made in the hallway asking, when's the house ours? They had written me off like an unpaid bill. And now they were toasting me like a king. Tyler refilled my wine. You've still got it, Pops, he grinned, strong as an ox. I took a sip and nodded. Must be all the chicken soup. He laughed too hard at that, like he was trying to prove something. Hey, he said, tapping his glass with a butter knife. Can I say something? My daughter groaned. Here we go. He stood anyway, dramatic as ever. To Grandpa, he said, may he live long enough to enjoy it. Laughter. I raised my glass too, held his eyes. Then I whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. I already did. He blinked. I watched the grin falter just slightly, enough. I leaned back in my chair, surrounded by party hats and paper plates, feeling more alive than I had in years. Because I knew something they didn't. The inheritance was already gone. The stage was already set. And the final act was coming. Some truths don't need to be spoken. They just need to be printed and left in plain sight. The letter sat on the mantel like a ticking clock. I printed it that morning while the house was still quiet. The font was simple, the paper thick. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. To whom it may concern. The house has been transferred. I'm not as useless as you thought. I read it once, folded it in thirds, then flattened it back out. Let the words breathe. Tyler and my daughter had left earlier for brunch, or so they said. I overheard enough to know they were going to meet a contractor. Maybe open up the kitchen wall, my daughter had said. More light for resale value. Resale of a home that still smelled like my wife's perfume. I made sure the door was unlocked, lights off, blinds drawn. I even left the TV running softly, like I just stepped out for a doctor's appointment. Then I settled into the study behind the old bookshelf where the camera hid, sipped my coffee slow, bitter, perfect. The clock ticked just past 6 when I heard the door open. "Dad," my daughter's voice called out too loud. Tyler followed. "Maybe he's still out. You brought the garage opener, right?" I heard their shoes on the tile, then silence. They'd seen it. Tyler's voice dropped. "What the hell is this?" My daughter picked it up. I imagined her brow tightening, lips pressing thin. "He transferred the house," she said. "To who?" "Does it matter?" Tyler snapped. "We don't have the deed. It's over. It's over." My daughter paced. "No, he can't do this, not without telling us. We were family." Now she remembered. Tyler kicked something, probably the leg of the ottoman. He gave it to someone. Who? There it was, the panic. I leaned closer to the monitor, watching them through the grainy lens like ghosts in a memory I didn't want to keep. "I told you," my daughter hissed. "We should have pushed him to sign last year, when he was weaker." Tyler didn't answer. Then the sound of glass shattering, a heavy, sharp crack that echoed down the hall. "He can't do that," Tyler screamed. But I had. I set my coffee down and folded my hands in my lap. Outside the study door, silence returned like fog rolling in. They were starting to understand. I wasn't their silent foundation anymore. I was the storm. Some revenge doesn't need fire, just paper and silence. Helen's office was colder than I remembered, not in temperature, in tone, the kind of cold that lives in courtrooms and confession booths. Every item had purpose, every word held weight. I sat at the head of the long oak table, Jonah to my left, Helen beside him. Across from me, my daughter in a stiff gray blazer, Tyler in some designer hoodie, bouncing his leg like a child waiting for cake. They didn't greet me, not really. My daughter gave a tight nod. Tyler smirked, leaned back, arms crossed. "I told you," he muttered under his breath. "He's just trying to scare us." Helen cleared her throat. "This meeting," she said, "is to read the final and legally binding revision of Joseph Whitman's living trust." She opened the folder slowly, deliberately. My daughter rolled her eyes. Tyler scoffed. "Let's just get to the part where I sign." Helen ignored them. She began reading aloud, her voice sharp and dry like a judge pronouncing sentence. "Effective immediately, the property at 87 Flintridge Lane and all financial holdings therein are transferred to Jonah Michelson." Tyler blinked. For loyalty, respect, and never asking. The room went dead. "What?" my daughter whispered. Tyler sat forward. "That's not real." "It's been filed with the county registrar," Helen said, flipping a page. "Time-stamped, witnessed, irrevocable." "No," Tyler barked. "He can't just, you can't do that." "I didn't," I said softly. "You did." He turned to me, jaw clenched. "This house is my inheritance." "No," I replied. "It was a gift you tried to steal before I died." My daughter's voice cracked. "Dad, we didn't. This isn't fair. We were just—" "I know what you were," I said. "Every word, every lie, every laugh when you thought I couldn't hear." I reached into my coat pocket and slid the thumb drive across the table. Helen placed her hand on it like it was gold. Tyler stared at it like it was poison. "What is that?" he asked. "The baby monitor," I said. "The kitchen, the hallway, the study." My daughter's eyes widened. "You recorded us." I protected myself. "You invaded our privacy," she snapped. I looked at Jonah. His expression hadn't changed, calm, steady. "You came for what wasn't yours," I said. "You mocked me, planned around my death, and still had the audacity to smile in my face." Tyler stood, knocking his chair backward. "This isn't over." "No," I said. "For you, it's just beginning." He stormed toward the door, muttering curses. My daughter sat frozen, blinking fast, the tears silent but steady now. I turned to Helen. "You have everything." She nodded. "Every form, every recording, every word." She closed the file gently. "Meeting adjourned," she said. Jonah stood and moved beside me, offering his arm. I took it. As he helped me to my feet, I looked one last time at the children I once would have died for. They looked like strangers now, wealthless, powerless, exposed. I didn't smile. There was nothing left to say. Some peace comes after war. Mine came in a garden I almost let them take. Jonah's arm was steady as he helped me down the steps, slower now that the air was turning warm again. The roses had begun to bud, just barely, little fists of color waiting to open. My wife's favorites. She planted them herself, one spring long ago, humming hymns under her breath. Tyler once looked out at this same patch and called it a waste of lawn. Said we should rip it out, put in concrete, maybe rent the yard for events. He never understood what roots were. Jonah and I sat on the bench beneath the cedar arch, the one I built after my wife's chemo started. It creaked the same way it used to, like it was relieved to hold our weight again. "You did right, Uncle," Jonah said quietly. I shook my head. "No, I did what they made necessary." He didn't argue, just nodded, hands folded in his lap, watching bees drift lazily through the air. Tyler hasn't called since the reading. No rage texts, no fake apologies, just nothing. My daughter sent a letter. Not an apology, just confusion wrapped in pretty words. "I don't understand why you do this. We're family." She signed it, "Love always." As if that phrase still meant anything after the forged documents, the whispers at my bedside, the inheritance mapped out like blueprints before I was even in the ground. I never replied. I placed her letter in the cigar box, the same one Jonah returned to me weeks ago. Nestled it beside his childhood drawing, the one with my stick figure face and "best uncle ever" written in crooked marker. He didn't know I kept it. Didn't know I unfolded it once a year on my birthday, when the phone didn't ring. I looked at him now, grown but still somehow carrying that same gentle quiet. He never once asked for the house, never hinted, never counted the rooms or measured the closets. He just showed up when it mattered. The birds returned to the trees, the light cut soft through the branches. Somewhere inside, the dishwasher kicked on. The house was mine again, not just by law but by feeling. The silence didn't hurt anymore, it felt earned. Like a man who'd paid off a long, painful debt. "Think they'll come back around?" Jonah asked. "They already did," I said, "just not the way they hoped." He smiled. We sat a while longer, no need to speak. Later, after he left for the evening, I walked back inside alone. The floors creaked like they always had, familiar and worn. I passed the fireplace on my way to the kitchen. Above it hung the framed document, smooth, official, sealed. Transfer of trust and property, Joseph Whitman to Jonah Michelson. I stared at it for a moment. Then I went back outside with the hose. The rose bush was leaning east, thirsty. I watered slowly, careful not to drown the roots.